Hola, buenas tardes, compañeros, estimada audiencia, asesores externos especializados y docentes del PRONI. Me da mucho gusto saludarlos nuevamente. Este es nuestro 9º día de trabajo con actividades sincrónicas. El día de mañana vamos a estar con actividades asincrónicas. El día de hoy nos acompañan 2 expertos que tuvimos la semana pasada. Ellos son Rosalía Valero de Cambridge Assessment English y Jonny Frank de Michigan Language Assessment. El tema principal o el webinar que van a impartir el día de hoy nuestros expositores se denomina Aprendizaje Integrado y Evaluación. Adelante, Rosalía Valero y Jonny Frank, bienvenidos nuevamente.
Muchas gracias, Vane.
Podemos iniciar. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, Jonny, again, and hello to all our lovely, lovely colleagues from Brony.
Hi, yeah. Hello, afternoon to you, Rosalía, and hello to everybody who's with us. I'm not sure. Can you see the presentation, Rosalía, at the moment?
Nope, not yet.
Now you can.
Yes, it's here.
Brilliant.
Now it's here. Yes.
So yeah, thanks for being with us on a Thursday afternoon. We're happy to be here, full of energy, full of beans. So, Rosalía, what are we speaking about today?
Oh, we're going to talk about integrated learning and assessment, which is a very interesting topic, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, and I think it's been one of the themes of the week, hasn't it, in this special program that we love to participate in and be part of. And so, in particular, we'll be speaking about some very interesting things and getting you to reflect and think. Isn't that right, Rosalía?
Exactly. So we're going to be looking, we cannot possibly look at everything to do with assessment. So we cannot possibly look at everything to do with integrating learning and assessment, but we're going to talk about some of the key principles behind this. And we're going to show some practical techniques and examples of what we're talking about. So we would like you to give you some ideas to really give you food for thought, as we say, right? And make you see sort of more actively how you are already integrating assessment into teaching, which is great, right? But maybe we're not fully aware sometimes, Jonny.
Yeah, I think that'll be a theme that we see throughout. That you'll be thinking, oh, that's new, and something. Oh, well, I do that already. I didn't know I was doing integrated learning and assessment. So let's. I think the first thing we're going to do is this, Rosalía, a bit of thought capturing. That's a nice phrase, isn't it?
So we're going to ask you. We're still welcoming lots of colleagues here. Lots of lovely places where they're saying hello, Jonny. It's a wonderful place. I had never heard about Rosa Morada in Nayarit. Must be a great place because it has a lovely name. So we're going to Menti for this one.
We are, and I'm going to share that with you right now. We're going to do some mentying now and a little bit of mentying later, but not too much. But we think it's nice to get people's views on things. And this one is called A Couple of Words on Assessment. If you can see that, you should be able to see the code at the top. So if you can go on your mobile phone or in a different browser or a different window or tab, and we just want to get your first impressions of when you hear the word assessment. What do you think of? That might have changed this week, Rosalía, because there have been some sessions on this. So we might have some interesting words coming on. Yeah.
But you hear the word assessment. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Do you get something like positive? What sort of feeling? What sort of idea? What sort of memories, for example, even things? Okay.
Awesome.
Oh, good. Exam, yes. Test.
Language, yeah. Flexible, I like that. That's interesting.
That's a very positive way of looking at it. Yeah. Feedback. That's going to be a key word today. Learning. Yes, definitely.
Oh, feedback as well. Yeah, you're right. That is a good shout out. Yep. How many have we got?
Progress.
We've got a few there.
Yes.
You give me the number that you want to get to, Rosalía, and then we'll stop. Or you give
Let's
me a
get to
time.
84 at least. Evaluation. Yeah. Talk about assessment. We usually talk about evaluation.
Feedback is big. Evaluation, feedback, and learning
Feedback
right now.
is the winner today, I think, which is great.
We'll give 10 seconds. So just a warning, I'm going to be sharing.
We've reached double my target number
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
We're
We've
good
got
to
a very
go.
engaged crowd. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Really, really interesting. Really good to see, actually. So I think we're starting quite ahead of ourselves with this. So let's go to the back to the presentation.
Totally. This is what we call activating your schemata, that where we ask you something or give you a word, and then you immediately start having memories or recollections or words or ideas associated to the word you have just heard.
And it's still going. People are still putting words in, but yeah.
Lovely. And that means your brain is really working a lot, right?
We can now update this presentation with some of the feedback we got from you, because actually previously we've had sessions where we talk about assessment, not specifically ILA, but we've had things like this come up. So maybe classroom based or continuous assessment, which I guess would fall under the informal category, which we do a lot of when we're operating as teachers. Formative, I guess that covers feedback, Rosalía, in a little way, like partially.
Yep, definitely.
So
and then we have some words, and you heard Jonny say ILA. We are like that. Sorry, sometimes I think we abuse acronyms, so that we tend to get so used to them that we talk about ILA for integrated learning and assessment. We have learning oriented assessment here, which you hear me say LOA all the time, Jonny, because I've got used to that all the time. But yeah, interesting, for example, low stakes and high stakes, because some exams, some evaluations, some assessment, definitely it's like a bigger priority than others, right? Like if you need to test your English because you're applying to go to Canada, for example, for immigration purposes, that really is high stake, right? Or when you are applying for a scholarship, etc. Oh, what are we looking at now?
Well, I guess if we look back at the Menti, we've got certain things there, like quite big ones: evaluation, progress, evidence. That's got quite a few entries. So I think that kind of falls in with saying assessment tends to be looked at as a measurement, right?
Totally, yeah.
So we're looking to measure something for a specific purpose.
And those two
or
things
intention
are usually not welcome by many people, especially when you've been at home for a long time, and it's very easy to go to the kitchen or to the dining room, etc., and you have lots of different things, right, while you are teaching remotely.
So you can talk me through this picture. This is one of the pictures that. So we plan these webinars.
Food.
We plan these webinars together, and then we have shared access to the presentations. And then I go back in, and it's Rosalía Valero's been editing, and a lot of pictures that go in there. So you're gonna explain what this means. This picture
to do with food. It's like Jonny. I know you're a great cook and you enjoy cooking, right? I'm sure many of our colleagues here, if we ask them, do you like cooking? Do you do your own cooking, etc.? They would say yes, right? And here we have two lovely cooks, okay? What happens when you're cooking? Do you just read the recipe, you follow the instructions, and then it's ready? Would that be a good way to go about it?
You could do that, but it'd be a bit risky, wouldn't it? Because something might have gone wrong along the way.
Exactly. Like sometimes you get confused and you use sugar instead of salt, or the other way around. That can be a disaster, right? So what do you need to do?
Well, one of the keywords that came up was feedback, right? So we're looking at feedback from the actual dish you're cooking and preparing.
That's a nice way of looking at it. So the dish is giving you feedback. So here we're talking about what sort of assessment?
Well, the purpose would be, I guess, like formative, right? This is a nice example of, or a nice metaphor for what we would consider formative assessment or formative purposes of assessment in the classroom or at home. So yeah, I like this. I think it's a nice
Exactly, because when there's
image.
teaching, we hope there's also learning happening, right?
Hmm.
And we shouldn't rely on assessment till the very last day to see whether learning has actually been taking place. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's how formative assessment can support the teaching practice and guide the learning process. And we're going to see different ideas and different ways of doing this.
And I know what you're thinking. People watching are like, are they really chefs? But the other reason that Rosalie has chosen this image because later on we're going to look at peer and self-assessment as being
Exactly.
an intrinsic component of integrated learning and assessment. So there are many different messages here, and the one of being, well, would I really go to a restaurant with chefs that were, well, no, but we're trying to explain or like prepare ourselves for later on when we say, well, actually students can taste their own, linguistic food and each other's and give feedback on that as well, obviously with some guidance and help from teachers as facilitators and with the right balanced and starting small approach, but it is possible.
Linguistic food. Okay, that's a new term today. Very interesting idea. So people are going to think that we were really hungry when we did this, right?
I know.
So we had the cooking process, right? So the food is ready. Look at this lovely pasta, right? Doesn't it look yummy?
I have to say, it does look quite good.
It does. How do we know whether it's really good? What needs to happen here now?
The proof is in this is in the spaghetti bolognese, not the pudding, but in the eating, right? We need to be eating it, and basically what we're touching on here is, well, purposes for summative assessment, right? The end product.
The sum of everything, exactly, the end product. So everything within our teaching process and the learning process or processes that our learners are generating, are working on, are working with, etc. Let's see what we got. Let's see where we really, what we really achieved. Okay, and that's when we use summative assessment. These will tell us whether it was good pasta or not so good pasta or awful pasta. Nobody wants to make awful pasta.
Well, and nobody wants to eat it either. Yeah, it's
exactly.
nobody needs that.
Well, it depends. I mean, talk about people who just got married, right? Maybe you don't want to hurt your new husband or new wife sensibility, right?
But I guess with learners and parents, and we've got to be honest, right? We've got to be honest.
Exactly.
And so we're going to open up with quite an honest conversation about, well, why is assessment traditionally used? Because I think that there's a lot more, at least this is my view of things. Rosalia, you might have a different opinion, but I think it's evolving people's views and their interaction with assessment quite quickly.
Oh, totally.
And if you compare it to 5 years and even 10 years ago, it's some very important steps have been taken. But there's still a bit of a traditionalist mentality around assessment, right? That people can get a little bit fixated on. And we're going to show, I guess we're going to show how we can evolve 4 areas of traditional use of assessment, aren't we? That's what we're going to look at next.
Exactly. I mean, it's like I can tell you, for example, Cambridge Assessment has been creating assessment exams, evaluations for over 150 years. Our exams have changed so much. They have really evolved because of everything, as you say, everything we know now, everything that has been changing, etc. Even what has been happening within the last 15 months. So why is assessment traditionally used? What is the purpose? And here we have 4 key elements, we think, when it comes to why we use assessment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And very short terms here, right? Things, but they really reflect a lot about what is happening before, during, and after these things that happen, right, Jonny?
Yeah.
But what is the common denominator here? If we say things like keeping track, highlighting problems and mistakes, apply pressure, right? Highlight what isn't working. I've made it very easy for you, Jonny.
I would say it's a bit judgy.
Yeah.
We're judging them, aren't we?
Very much so. And they do sound negative, don't they?
Yeah, I think so.
So do you like that?
I would respond quite badly to this as a learner. So what we're going to try and do is flip it, right? We're going to flip it a
Exactly.
little bit and look at the
So,
positive way of seeing these 4 areas.
so we go from cannot to can. If you think about the 4 different things that we showed you, very definitely they were saying, not good, not there yet, no, not clear to you, I can see, etc. Let's focus on the positive.
And just to give, we've had some nice comments I can see here. I know you're keeping an eye on YouTube. I'm keeping an eye on the comments in here. Leopoldo says, I love this topic. My wife is a teacher and she uses this a lot, like this type of assessment. I assume that might be informative. And then Juan Manuel said, when something is evaluated, it is controlled. That's an interesting comment. I would see that as neither negative nor positive, but a statement of, fact. We need to keep a handle, or we need to keep on top of these things, don't we, when we're assessing, because it needs to be worth something, whether it's to feedback or to give an end of term or an end of school report.
Absolutely.
So it's good to see people engaging with this topic so well.
Yeah.
So
let's go on.
We've got 4 areas. What could this one is I think it's keeping track, isn't it? As we look through there.
But this time, what do we want? This is what we are showing here. How we can go from something that we thought maybe was not really that good, that, as you said, was judgy, right? And how we can turn it, we can flip it and turn it into something positive. So let's not think about assessment as something that helps us just keep track, but something that is really helpful, useful, massively interesting and usable, that helps us educators decide where we should really be focusing our attention and our efforts. Because when learners are making mistakes, that is telling us something, right? So it's not just counting mistakes and counting how many times we had no, right? But what is the message we're getting from that?
Exactly. And on top of this, what I quite like is the picture you've chosen, Rosalía, which is a very good one. To help focus your efforts, what we've got here is a journey, right? And that's what we're trying to, I guess, transmit, that it is a journey. It's not like a punctual stop where you get a magnifying glass and look down. No, we're looking ahead. We're looking at maybe the weather ahead. We're looking at the
Exactly.
sea. Is it a choppy sea? So where
but
do we
not just ahead, Jonny, but if you look at everything like this big, right? Let's focus really on something.
Somebody said that as well in here, that focusing is key. I can't remember your name, sorry, but I saw it in the chat.
Great. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it when we talk about feedback, which is oh so important.
So here's the second one, Rosalía. So that we did say highlight problems and mistakes, but you think there's a better way of us approaching this area of assessment?
This is really being supportive, right? So instead of just saying, as I said, wrong, I say this thing about using red when we correct things, right? Especially when we get written test or homework, etc., right? People then tend to hate red because they associate that color with something that you've done that is wrong, okay? Right? But let's see how we can make how we can make this into something positive that can really support the learners, right? And we're getting some very interesting ideas, right? Because we really want to help students and we want them to avoid feeling nervous, right? Because let's face it, Jonny, I think we did see that first mentee when you say what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear assessment, exams, etc. Some people wrote anxiety, nervous, right? Afraid, scared.
Somebody in the StreamYard chat says that as well. How can we help students avoid feeling nervous about assessment because they hear the word exam, hear the word, and they immediately think of exams? We've got some nice ideas about that, I think, coming up, haven't we? So that we can be doing assessment without being too explicit about it, and without students getting too nervous about it. So
Exactly. And as you say,
we
not
will
being
get to that
judgy,
stage.
just
Yeah,
judgy.
that's what that's what it boils down to. You're quite right.
Exactly. Somebody, Rodolfo, is sharing. Assessment also tells me a lot about me in my teaching practice. So that is really great. Yeah. How about the next one?
Well, the next one was apply pressure, which that could work. That could work for some students, but for many it probably won't. Particularly like in 2021 when it's been a high pressure last 18 months, nearly 18 months, yeah, or 18 months. So what we're saying is to keep them motivated to learn, and we're going to explore some ways of doing that, aren't we, Rosalía, as we go on?
Exactly. Exactly. And this is very good and lovely things that people have been providing their thoughts, etc. This thing about showing where we should keep on going, how we can make these happen, right? Not giving up, giving our learners an opportunity to show how they can improve, etc. Very nice.
There's one here that from Ruth Naomi that says assessment helps know what we need to reteach or teach differently. That really resonates with me as well, because it shouldn't be an inflexible process. It has to be quite agile and quite changing to an extent. So that's a really cool way of putting it.
Right. And lots of different ways of talking about assessment being formative rather than just summative, and sort of guiding, as you said, Jonny, guiding the way and supporting both the teaching, but most importantly, the learning.
Yep. Totally agree with those comments. We've got people very much on the same page. And as we look at the page on screen, we've got highlighting going on, because the fourth one, which we were going to wrap this section up with, is highlight what isn't working. Now, that's not that helpful, is it, Rosalía? Like,
well,
we can think of examples in many languages, an easy one, right?
exactly, because if you just tell me, no, that is wrong, 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 and you tell me wrong 84 times, how can that help me? How can that motivate me? Because
exactly.
the first thing I say, okay, so this is not for me, I give up.
Imagine you were learning a different language, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, or whatever. You found yourself in a context where you were quite low level, but you had to engage with that language to ask for directions or check the bus, or I don't know, where's the metro? Somebody's like, Johnny's not speaking that well, so I'm just going to say, I don't understand you. Even though some of it they do understand, they go, you're wrong. You can't speak Chinese, Portuguese, Spanish. That's not going to help me, is it? I'm not going to get to go where I need to go. I'll keep asking tens of other people until somebody says, you mean, and then they'll probably tell me how to say the word properly.
Right.
So,
and a lovely comment here from Saeed. Thank you very much, saying, where possible, assessment should be something you can actually enjoy. So let's keep that thought, because we're going to come back to it. Formative. Yes, definitely. Oh, is this a test?
now we're moving on to principles of good assessment, right? So we're getting it. I guess we're starting from a wider, like a more global level, and getting quite specific now. So we're talking about good assessment in the classroom. So we're focusing ourselves a little bit in the direction of travel. And we are going to have a little bit of a fun test, but it's anonymous, so it doesn't matter if people get things, wrong or whatever. It's going to be anonymous as a group, and basically we're going to look at 7 key areas of good assessment, and we're going to give an example first, so we know what people are expected to do, aren't we, Rosalía? We're going to give them 4 freebies.
That's so generous of us today, right? And we're saying that the first one, so we're giving you clues. We are saying every line represents just one word, right? So we're saying that we should check where we are before teaching, right? Because when you teach, you want learning to take place because you want your students to get somewhere. But first of all, we should know where you are, right? Because lots of things depends on where you are. Are you going to walk there? Are you going to, I don't know, bike, take a fly there, whatever, right? What's number 2?
Using suitable tasks or activities. So if we want to be getting some feedback on their, I don't know, written competence, for instance, then it should really be an activity that is able to elicit not just the skill, but also the level you're looking to assess them at. Maybe that's an A1 or an A2, to give some insight into whether they are reaching that particular level or if they're going to need a bit more support.
Exactly. And these number 3, tell learners about what to do next, has a lot to do with this wonderful comment we have here saying it should really show learners how much they have already achieved and
Yes.
what else they can achieve. So that's great.
Everybody likes a pat on the back, so definitely. And develop assessment skills. Sorry, a bit of editing there or screen, but develop self-assessment skills, which like we said, we promised we're going to look at that as we get further on. Before we do that, we are giving you a little test. Like I said, it's a fun quiz, not a test. It's a quiz. So we've got gives targeted, keeps them feeling about learning, is clear about the point. So we're going to go back to
That doesn't mean
Menti.
that those words start with M, right?
No, quite the opposite. So we're going to go to Menti again. I'm already on the screen, so if you've got your Menti up, and you might even be able to beat us to it and get there. We've got it already. Oh, can you see that, Rosalía?
Not yet.
No, I've shared and got excited.
Oh,
there
yeah,
we go.
it's alive.
So we'll give maybe 30 seconds for this because we are wanting to get onto some interesting
These
ideas.
are really good.
Gives targeted. We already had one with task. Have we got any in the comments? Somebody's got
Positive.
one for number 6. Yeah, that would be for maybe that's for the next one, I think.
Motivated.
So we've got the winner there. I'm going to say, because we've got a good group today, Rosalía, that they've got it right.
Very good.
So we've got feedback, which
Lovely.
I think is the right
well
answer.
Done.
Let's move on to the next one, which is keeps them feeling about learning. We've got some people.
Nice words getting here. Scared. That's not my sort of classroom, I have to say.
And I think there's a tiny delay, isn't there? I think possibly
there is
tiny. So I'm going to be a bit more.
I'm going a bit
careful.
crazy between looking at these and looking at YouTube. I can tell you.
Motivated is a good one. And
Motivated is a lovely one.
There used to be a program I watched called Catchphrase.
Confident is a wonderful one.
Yeah. Now I could see earlier. Oh, I can see the right answer floating around the nucleus that we've got of motivated, confident. These are great. I mean, basically, yes, full marks because you've got the idea. The answer is actually, Rosalía, can you remember?
Feeling motivated.
Was it positive or motivated? I can't remember now. We'll check in a moment.
It's something positive. That I'm sure about.
I am. Final one is clear about the points. Also, the length of the dash doesn't mean it's a short word. It can be any length of the word. It's clear about the, I spy somebody's got it within the first few there. Or not yet. The main point, yeah.
That could be, yeah.
Final point, central point. We're thinking a bit more about, I guess it would be in the same word cloud as teaching, wouldn't it? In my book.
Yeah.
When I think of teaching, I think of somebody's got it or some people have got it there. I've spotted it.
I think it depends. Are you a cat person or a dog person? Is this about teaching or learning?
That's a good way of putting it. So great ideas there. Target, I like
Jonny.
that. I like the focus of the target as well. That's a good one. So let's get back onto the presentation. Thanks for those in the chat and in Menti giving us their ideas there.
It really is
really
lovely
appreciate
to see
that.
you all so engaged. Thank you for that.
And so here we are. We've got targeted feedback, positive, but I liked motivated. I even prefer that
great,
one.
yeah.
I know it's not in our answer key, but I prefer it. So big points for people putting that in. And the learning point. So we're going to explore actually these three. I think these are the 5, 6, and 7 are the ones we're going to really hone in on. Are we not, Rosalía?
Yeah. We have to focus on some of them today.
Because we would love to have you for hours and hours. We're not sure if you'd like to have us, but we're having to be very focused on what we look at today.
Yeah, we enjoy being with you so much. So here, let's look at this, which can come from any of the course books you may be using in your state, right? So what's the learning point here? We haven't got a Menti for this, but just feel free, please. Oh, we've got a Menti?
No, we don't. No.
No. So just give us your choices here. What do you think the learning point is?
And I like this because when I was full-time teaching, it was mainly with younger learners, as you know, Rosalía, and with teenagers.
Yeah.
And teenagers will be like, what's the point? What's the point? What is the point? So
teach! What is this for? Yes.
What's the point? Why am I here? What's the point? So being clear on what so for example, I'm seeing some there that
yes, Dolores. Dolores has noticed that we have lots of WH words. Yes.
And Anna came in as well with that one. The uses of do and does I've seen. Yes, that could be one. So it could be that specific grammar point. Should we reveal?
Yes, please.
So yes,
exactly. That could be one of the learning points. That could be one.
Present simple.
Somebody
we saw
also
that as well.
said present simple. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. Great. About work. So this one is like a conversation completion exercise, but the general topic is about work. What do you do? Where do you work? All those kind of things. There are others obviously in here, but I think we got some great ideas there. So you should always be like analyzing, I guess, is the message here, right? Any activity, think of that teenager or that maybe, student that's not really switched on in primary saying, what's the point? Why are we doing this? So you need to be as clear as you can about it. Here's another one, Rosalía. I like this one
because teenage expression. What's the point?
I know it is, but it actually helps you calibrate and think,
of course,
why are we doing this? And if they, I don't even wait for them to ask me. I'm like, we're doing this because, and why? And then I'll be like, why is that important? Well, yeah, okay, Jonny, that's fine. So we've got another one here, which is it looks like a speaking activity, but underneath that speaking activity, what's the point? What's the learning point?
The first, when you said, what's the point? You're just saying like you were questioning the activity, but Jonny is not questioning the activity.
No.
But we're saying, is it clear what we hope that our learners will achieve? Somebody saying descriptions, talking about furniture.
Yeah, Demis, I think says house vocabulary. Spot on, I think, yeah.
House vocabulary, yeah.
There are, Maria. That's great. That is really good.
House vocabulary, yeah. Some lexical fields. People are becoming more
giving directions, maybe with a different type. It could be, but maybe with the picture would have to be something more, I guess, map based. But we got vocabulary for furniture and describing an apartment. So the two key learning points there we got. But I like the there is and there are, because I would definitely, whoever put that was a good call. I would be using this as a speaking activity at some point through this class to practice there is and there are, possibly after students have drawn their own places. But yes, great ideas. So what's this? KWL, can you explain this to me, Rosalía?
Yeah, it sounds like the name of a radio station, but in fact it's something that really can help a lot when you are talking to your learners about learning and how you want them to keep motivated and even excited about something, right? So let's say you're going to be reading something about I don't know, Australia, Jonny, right? So you can ask them, okay, so next class we're going to be talking about Australia. So what do you know about Australia? Right? Something you already know about. Oh, lovely Chris Hemsworth. He's from Australia, right? First thing that comes to my mind. For some of the people, maybe you, Jonny, you think of kangaroos. I think of Chris Hemsworth, right? Like, what would you like to know about Australia? Okay. And then what is the different thing about point number, the third point? learn today? That would be once you have carried out the activity, once you have done the task, right? Or your students have done the task.
And I would say maybe for primary, this is quite conceptually quite difficult. So I would probably be looking at maybe using a smiley face about a subject, and then like a quizzical face, like what are you interested in? And at the end of the class, what you probably already do with your routine is, well, what did we do today, and what did you learn, and what were the main things we did? You might even start that in the first language, but then as you go through the school cycle and they've got more of that that key language to be able to respond to this, and they've got the idea, you might then transition into English. But yes,
and we have a Maria Mirna express it here in a very nice way. Keep your learners motivated about learning because they can reflect on what they already know, which is always important, right?
Yeah, it must, again, great point that from Maria. We're starting with a positive, aren't we? We're saying, I know you know stuff about this, so what do you know? So this is a mentee. We have got another mentee, Rosalía. You were right.
And the thing is, we say one of the points was a suitable task or activity. But when we think of a test, Jonny, I think that the first thing comes to mind is some sort of written test. And that is sad, isn't it?
It is. And I'm going to veto mentee here just because I can see my whole screen and I can see the time and I know that we're in good time. But if we go to mentee, we might just harm that. So in the chats, we'd be really interested. A dialogue, for example, Miguel has come in with. That's a nice way of doing it. Yeah, but assessing students learning. So yeah, you think of a written test, but no, we're constantly monitoring, which is a nice word of like floating around, whether it's virtually or in the classroom. So
a role play, very nice.
I mean, we have actually got some mentee ideas coming through because people have gone on. So I can tell you those just...
Some colleagues agreeing with me about Green's Hemsworth. Thank you.
We've got some really good ideas here. I'm going to roll them off. So we've got comic strip, dialogue, conversation, sing a song, could be, a presentation, matching words with pictures.
Wow. A guessing game.
Role play. So if we've got time at the end, I'm going to share those, Rosalía. But like I said, I want to just come on to some of our ideas that we had for this. And can you talk me through some of these, or at least get us going?
I'm going to show you. Awesome. So traffic light, for example, when you want to see how your learners feel about something, you can use a traffic light. Or in my case, we call these foamy here in Mexico, right? Because it's foamy material, right? So how much did you understand that, right? So if it's green, look at that. If it's green, and green, there's green and films, right? So this is green, what I'm showing you. That would be a positive thing. How about a yellow one that doesn't look yellow? These work better in my imagination than what
we can see the yellow. Don't worry.
Here. Good. And this one, which is red. Okay.
So I've got a couple of interesting points from the chat that I want to just throw in here. Well, for three things. First of all, there's traffic lights, or if you're finding the visuals difficult, you could even do it with hands. So 5, I'm 100% sure. 4, pretty much got it. 3, I'm all right. 2, I need some help. 1, I'm really struggling. And to really take off the pressure from students in class, whether it's virtual or otherwise, get them to close their eyes and give you either the traffic lights or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then they're not considering any pressure, but people next to them don't feel embarrassed, or even get them to write it down on a piece of paper, like give themselves, a 5 or whatever. 2 questions came up, and I want to quickly deal with them.
Okay.
Can you assess with a game? Somebody asked. I think you can, as long as there's a language point. What's the point? Yeah, as long as there's a language point wrapped in around it. And also, would you evaluate first grade? What we're saying here, I guess, is these aren't formal sit-down tests. So observation, for example, is a valid form of assessment. Now, from the very first learning experiences that people have, they're going to have they're going to be assessed in this informal way. So although we're using the word assessment here, we're not just translating that into evaluation, and we're not saying it has to be a test or a formal interview with a 4-year-old student. Observation is a great way of seeing it. Games is a fantastic way. For example, it could be a game that's practicing house vocabulary or games or hobbies. Portfolio is a wonderful one that I like. So a collection of work. So you can see, you could even apply the KWL principle kind of and say, well, this is what you were doing before. And look at how you progressed over the term. Now you're writing 3 sentences instead of 1 sentence about a picture.
I'm going to just say, Jonny, here we have Leonardo sharing this idea about gamification. The same way we can use gamification for the learning process, we can also gamify assessment. And as you say, it's not just having a game for the sake of having a game, but the purpose, right? And with young learners, yes, we can have fun activities that really, and this may sound a bit contradictory, but they don't feel like a test because they actually enjoy them.
Let's say you've been doing certain instructional language or particularly like prepositions of place. If you give them instructions, very short instructions for a game they're going to play, it could be a reading assessment. You're watching them play and saying, they got it. Oh, I need to help them over there. No, you need to roll 2 dice or whatever. So yes, games are a great idea for that.
And I think we have a specific recommendation here. Somebody was talking about things that can be fun. I don't know whether you have heard about the Cambridge Kahoots. We know that most of you know about Kahoots and that you have used Kahoots, creating your own, which is great, right? But Cambridge partnered with Kahoots, and we created the Cambridge Kahoots, which are for those 3 levels, right? So if you are with very young learners, etc., and starting with lower secondary learners, I'm sure you're going to love them. You have the link there so that you can, don't go now, because if you go now, you're going to love them so much, you're probably not coming back today. So yes, we love Kahoots, Amador. I think it's a general feeling, right? And that's why we created these Kahoots. We started with young learners, right? And it really is good. So go there and start using them, and you can use them as an activity in the classroom, or you could also have them for something for them to do at home, right? So go visit there, not right now, right? But gamifying assessment, lovely.
We've got more questions, Rosalía.
For ourselves and for everybody, yes, in general.
Yeah, we want to hear people's feedback on these. So how would you check these learning points? Because a lot of people are throwing in suggestions and they're really good. And it shows people are really thinking about this. But asking someone about their plans for the weekend, how might you assess that? Understanding someone giving directions to a place in town and vocabulary.
I find that challenging even in my own first language, Jonny. So
I know I've heard stories, Rosalía. I lost Rosalía, but asking someone,
use your GPS. That's the easiest way to go about it.
So asking someone about their plans for the weekend. So how could we do that? Maria's brought in a great example: role play dialogue. Brilliant. You could have that activity with some thinking time beforehand. You could get them to plan the activity, just in pairs maybe, or on their own. To brainstorm first and then plan, or brainstorm and then speak. So short dialogues are coming up a lot for that one. I think that's a reasonable suggestion. Yeah.
Role plays. I think sometimes we go to sort of forget about things. Like role plays can be so good and so useful. Lots of different things. Yes.
And creative and imaginative, which I know you love in the classroom. Like people can get really into that.
Totally, yeah.
Interview, emotion. So many coming through. My word. A game. Use the playground. Label locations. That's for number 2. Yes, understanding directions. That's a lovely idea. Once we get back to physical premises, using the playground is an amazing idea. Maria, I love that. Brilliant.
In fact, Jonny, I think you had a great activity for the Escuela en Casa when we got invited to participate in some, and you have that wonderful map.
I did. It was a great.
I know, it was a great experience.
Yeah, what I said with that one is in pair. Okay, that's an example of the type of work, but you could have in pairs somebody giving directions. Maybe they're even written out for them, and then the other person following the route and seeing where they arrive. With that's a really, so they're just listening, and their cognitive load is very low because they're just following with their finger and going, we're going to the pharmacy, and you say yes, or you go, oh, opposite the pharmacy is a supermarket. That was the destination. So yeah, lovely, great ideas. We are
Miming games. That is a great idea.
Yes, miming. I love
checking on
miming
family
games.
plans.
Yeah,
Good.
lovely ideas. I love miming games. So, Erica, great shout out for that. Let's explain this one, Rosalía. Bad dog.
I love dogs. I'm a dog person, so I love dogs, and we have 2 great dogs at home, right? So this is something, if you have a dog, I don't think you do this with cats, right? But sometimes when you're not very happy about
Cats wouldn't care.
something, something that you didn't really like your dog doing, you say, "Oh, bad dog." So this is this is lovely. The dog saying, "Okay, could you be more specific? Because dogs do so many things, right, during the day." So what exactly are you talking about? The fact that I peed where I shouldn't have, that I ate your biscuits, part of your cake, etc. That happened to my mother once. She made a great cake, and then lovely Blondie thought that the cake was for her, so she went on the table and had half the cake. So targeted feedback, because there's so much, right? And we've said before, try not to show everything and all the different words or all the different grammar, etc., that was wrong. Let's focus.
And we'll get on to that. I want to give a shout out to Maria Christine, who said by playing different kinds of music, they can express how they're feeling by drawing emotions. That is a great idea.
Lovely.
Love that one. So
Lovely.
this is what you were just saying, Rosalía. As a summary, these are some rules we could follow. So this is here for reference. Like Rosalía said, encouraging. Yes, it should include correction, but it should be specific, and it needs to help them. So we need to help them move on. For example, Rosalía, we've got a nice example here. Students are doing a group activity discussing which is the best place for a tourist to visit in their town. So
what's our feedback?
So the process, which is, I guess, is what we're doing here, aligning a bit on how we might do this. Once you've got that, once they've finished that activity, you might collect the feedback. You might wait until the end instead of interrupting them. That would be good.
And
practice.
Why do we do that, Jonny? Why do we suggest that?
Well, confidence, which we've had, and anxiety. We want people to just be speaking. We want students to speak and not be too nervous about every other word. Otherwise, they stop speaking, basically. And also, what is it? The effective filter, which you're probably all aware of, Stephen Krashen, where it's like, make people relaxed. You're going to speak for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to say nothing. I'm going to walk around and I'm going to take some notes. So you might take notes. You're going to really focus on positive things, because if they've spoken for 1 or 2 minutes, there are bound to be lots of positives, right?
Yeah. But this is absolutely important. Some people say, "Oh yeah, what you're doing is you're creating a what they call it, the sandwich, right? A yes, good, bad,
a feedback
good
sandwich, yeah.
feedback sandwich, right?" But let's not just, as I said, remember those that red, having so much red, etc. It looks like blood sometimes. There's so much red, right? In fact, that's a very good recommendation. I think when you have written things that you're marking, don't just use red to mark, because I have horrible memories of homework that I got back from teachers.
I can't imagine that, Rosalía.
Red.
I think you're an exemplar student. But there we go. So, and the error correction could be done as a class without naming names. Maybe you've made a note of something to say, "Oh, Jonny doesn't quite understand, what this means," but speak to him privately. Maybe not do it in front of the class. Maybe you'll see if he absorbs and then corrects once he's seen the class correct it, because you've shared that, you've worked together, and you've been able to come up with corrections. How could you give feedback for these activities? Again, we're going to look for some examples I feel like we might be running close to the wind here. I don't know. I think we've got a few minutes left.
I think I can hear somebody's steps. Yes. So
yeah, virtual steps. But students doing a show and tell at the front of the class, and then students a task where they wrote an email to a pen friend in Japan. So we're going to go through some of these. Please give us your ideas as well. But as I said, we're going to just look at this for self-assessment and peer assessment. These are 4 really key steps that we were touching on. So let's not over egg the pudding. Let's not overwhelm them with too many pieces of feedback. 1 or 2 things.
And we have a great question here. How about what can we suggest in the case of you have to give feedback to 200 students and you have to use WhatsApp. So as I think one of the things we have said, don't try and focus on everything. Choose the things you would like to highlight. Definitely that I think would be the way to go about it. And because people have talk about role plays, for example, show and tells. So saying something about the voice itself, we could hear everything. That was great, right? It's a great way to give feedback because it's something really positive. You're not lying. When we say be positive, let's be clear. We're not saying think of anything that you can say and then lie away. No. We're saying there must have been something that was okay or very, very good or exciting or fantastic, right? So let's try and find that and make a point of talking about that.
Which is what we're saying there. 1 positive comment and 1 correction or improvement works really well. 200, I'm guessing 200 isn't 1 class, but you might have some classes within that, I hope. So if there are 4 or 5 classes within there, then you might be able to provide feedback specific to that class, such as here's some error correction. Which ones are right, which ones are wrong? The ones that are wrong from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, give me the correction or bring it in next time for homework. And some of the language, which for if you use it, they'll use it. Yeah. Even if we can simplify this that I really liked rather than you should try. But these are just some ideas of starting points. You could dial that down the language a little bit or keep it as it is. But you start using this language and then you can maybe even encourage them to use it when they're speaking to their partners or they've seen an activity get done in class.
Exactly. And even now looking at those things, I mean, here we start talking about the growth mindset. And this is something really important, I think, and very interesting to talk about. And you will see some of the points there. We're not going to read all of those points, but just this, we're going to be talking about a person, Professor Dweck, in the States, a university professor, right? And she talks about the growth mindset. And I'm sure some of you have seen our colleague, for example, Brad Bottenheimer from Cambridge University Press, right? We've seen Herbert Puchta, for example, one of the most popular course book writers from the Cambridge family, right? I'm talking about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And when we talk about the growth mindset, is we want to focus on how we can keep on learning and learning better all the time. And as I said, and we're sharing here the link, please, when you have 12 minutes, try and go and watch this TED Talk because it's going to make you see things in a really more positive way and why this is so important. Carol talks about the power of not yet. Don't just say, I cannot do this. I cannot do this yet. That means that you're opening your mind to the possibility of really achieving that and learning. And that communicates something very powerful to your brain.
Couldn't agree more. Again, we might skip Menti for this. I believe, Rosalía, is that a prudent decision to make?
I think it's a very prudent decision, but just that you see, if you look at this, you will notice that there are more than just 3 errors here. But we're saying just focus on 3, right? And we're going to show you, you do this. This is like the human way of going about this. But we also want to show the artificial intelligence way of going about it, right, Jonny? So what else would you like to say about this one?
I don't know if you want to give a couple of minutes. It's quite small. It might be quite small on the screen, but 3 errors. But this could be something that you apply to all your writing and you make sure that parents and students are aware as well. It's going to, I'm not sure they can see it clearly enough, so we might go on. But what you might see is identify 3 errors, choose just 2 to give feedback on, and say 1 positive thing about the writing. And now if you establish those as rules from the offset, it basically frees up a lot of your time because you're not spending 30 minutes rewriting the whole of a person's essay.
Exactly. And I know some colleagues, for example, say this time when I check your homework, I'm only going to check on vocabulary,
Exactly.
or this time I'm only going to check on the grammar, etc. So you can go about it. And here we're looking at lovely rise and improve, and you're getting the link for this, right? And this is artificial intelligence in action, Jonny.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's a useful tool if your students have internet access and you're able to set some work on this, obviously, but it might also give you some pointers on giving feedback, not just on writing, but possibly speaking as well, in terms of how you organize things. So you have the highlighted sentences, basically there's some suggestions around wording there where maybe it's syntax order or something. The ones that are circled, that are kind of highlighted in a box, those are wrong words or wrong spellings. So there's a code to it, and we're not saying you should implement a strict code because that can become quite excessive and quite troublesome in terms of workload. But it gives you an idea of how to approach this in a very disciplined way, so you're not bogged down and not spending too much time correcting night after night, 100 pieces of work.
Exactly. And here you can see that there is a code. If you think about it, most of us also use a code when we mark something, when we correct, right? And maybe SP for spelling, right? Or we go like that when we say a word is missing here, or V for vocabulary, or WW wrong word, etc. Things like that. Well, this is that principle in action here.
But with the positive comments, obviously, and saying this is great, because everybody likes good feedback. It happens with a friend of mine. I proofread some of his stuff that he wants to get published, and I have to remind myself because I can be quite critical, Rosalía, which you'll find hard to believe.
I know.
And I have to think, right, and again, it's always quite genuine praise, so that's positive. This is a great one. I'm glad we've got the seconds to be able to do it. Speaking is quite a difficult one. To self-correct because you end up just being parrots and echoing, and okay, you can recast and see if you might hear a pronunciation mistake, you recast, see if they bring it back to you, but then after that you should stop because they haven't got it. You might reformulate. So this is he take the bus to work. Yes, he take the bus to work. Okay, so they didn't get it. You might say he takes. Well, this is a nice way of you not interrupting and just pointing to a card or bringing a card on screen to say S. Why am I saying S? So the learners have to think there and think, why is he saying S at me? I said he'd take the bus to school. He takes the bus to school. Now, this is a difficult one, obviously, because this is an ingrained error until very, much higher up for many learners. But still, it's an interesting one. And there's this technique. You could also remove the S, have it color coded or in a certain part of the classroom, and then you just point to that part of the classroom or have a gesture that replaces it. You could even do like like that, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, I get you." Yeah, he takes the book.
Was that a mistake? Did you miss the S for the second one, or what happened here, Jonny?
Well, what we're saying is you start removing that, so it becomes they can become less dependent on that instruction, and again, it's self-correction then, rather than being told all the time, or pointing to the S is useful, but then you remove the S eventually. It's there as a color or something else. If you have color, children with color issues with eyesight, you could have some other way of presenting this, I'm sure. But I like this. I really like it, and it's the same with the th sounds, perhaps. Well, if you're working on particular th sound, particularly phonics in primary, this is a great way because they absorb phonics incredibly well, better than the teachers when they get trained on it. So yeah, I think these are really cool ways of eliciting self-correction rather than imposing it.
Absolutely.
And I'm surprised those virtual steps are higher than we thought, Rosalía, because we are getting away with it here. So you can also track. This is from a blog from the Cambridge University Post blog. You can see the address there. But basically, a teacher that's taking now this. I look at this and I think I'd prefer to have an Excel, to be honest, Rosalía. I like the idea
Excel, though,
and that's why we're keeping it here. But having it as an Excel will save you a lot of time, and also you have to be again disciplined about what are you going to focus on, and what are you happy to just leave for the time being and come to it another time.
And I think we'll have to go. Yes, we'll have to go. Hi, Enrique. You knew I was going to love you. We have to go. And just to remind you that when it comes to assessment, let's not leave it at the very end. These
Yeah.
are the key points that we wanted to share with you today, right? And let's be positive about it. Nobody really enjoys tests or exams. The things we did, and thank you for your lovely words of encouragement and expression that you found these useful, etc. That's the idea, right? Integrating assessment to learning is a great way to go about using assessment.
Okay. Yep.
Thank
Enrique, wave your
you.
hands.
I'm sorry to
No, no, no,
interrupt
no,
you
no.
guys. I'm sorry. Thank you very, very much. Actually, like we had some questions. Well, we had lots of questions, but you guys already gave a response to most of them during your presentation. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. You know that you two are one of the loved ones amongst the learning
Oh.
teachers community. So thank you very, very much. It was lovely to have you. And now voy a invitar a la licenciada Vanessa para que también ella pueda darles unas palabras de agradecimiento.
Muchas gracias, Enrique. Bueno, agradecerles nuevamente Rosalía y Jonny Frank. La verdad es que es un gusto tenerlos con nosotros. Nuestra audiencia, la verdad es que están muy contentos con ustedes. La semana pasada que nos acompañaron y el día de hoy, la verdad es que estas herramientas y aportaciones y experiencia que han aportado al Programa Nacional de Inglés, bueno, por supuesto a los asesores externos y docentes, es de mucha utilidad para ellos. Y les agradezco nuevamente. Y bueno, pues nos vemos un poco más tarde para hacerlo de la clausura, y para el caso de los asesores externos y docentes nos vemos en unos minutitos para seguir con el siguiente tema. Muchísimas gracias de nuevo, Rosalía y Jonny.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you so much.
Hola, nuevamente mucho gusto de poder verlas y verlos aquí en esta segunda, eh, en esta segunda sesión. Vamos ahora a continuar con las personas de The British Council. Y para esto, y para presentar a las ponentes, vamos a recibir a Yolanda Lezama, perdón.
Thanks, Juan Carlos, and thanks everyone for joining. Today, we have not only an important but necessary topic for all of us who are involved in education: special educational needs, how to make your classroom more inclusive, by great speakers that I am very happy to introduce. Today, we have with us María José. She has been teaching English since 2003. She's currently the educational technologist at St. Brendan's School, and she's a British Council online moderator. She's very much interested in the application of technology to assist special educational needs. She holds an MA in Digital Technology and Communication and Education from the University of Manchester and another MA in TESOL Teacher Education from the same university. We have as well Angélica. She has more than 26 years of experience in ELT. She started teacher training 23 years ago. She has delivered and designed many teachers' development courses and workshops in different backgrounds and environments. She has a master's degree in teaching English. She's an online tutor, material designer, and an academic consultant. Please help me welcome, with a warm virtual round of applause, María José Galleno and Angélica Flores.
Hello. Thank you, Yolanda, for your introduction.
Thank you so much. So, shall we start? Can you share the presentation, Angie?
Sure.
So thank you so much for inviting me here. To tell you the truth, I'm very excited to be amongst colleagues. It's not very common that I get to work in the Americas, so I'm really happy that I'm with you today. So the idea of today is to go through the new ways of teaching, making it all inclusive. This is what we want. We want our teachers, we want our classrooms, we want our students to have this possibility for all of us to really be a part of the classroom and really take charge of their learning. We want our students to be able to be part of our classrooms. So the idea of today, we'll be going through the contents. Can you show the next slide? Great. Okay. So the idea of today is we are going to go through the challenges in the classroom. I'm sure, like me, every day we have hundreds of challenges that are facing all of us. We're going to go through a bit of a change of paradigm. What is that we need to be able to do in order to help our students to really fulfill their purpose and to be able to really learn? We'll be looking at UDL at a glance, which is a universal design learning. Just a quick look so everybody understands where we're going. And of course, we're going to be looking at some practical ideas to implement in the classroom, because this is what we all want. You're almost there, almost ready to start the new academic year. And this is what we want. We want to be able to have these practical elements in order to apply them to the classroom. So let's think about our challenges in the classroom. Do you have any challenges? Are any of these challenges similar to what I face every day? A lot of the times, students have issues with working memory. The use of language. We're talking about concentration, organization of work. We're talking about learning preferences. So if you think about this, and these aspects that you're looking here on the screen, is it just our students with special educational needs, or is it in general? Doesn't it sometimes happen? I mean, I remember when I was a student, I had a horrible working memory. My memory never worked. So we need to think about how can we help our learners with everyday things. Okay, so let's go over some of the aspects of working memory. So let's think about working memory. What is our working memory? Is what we're dealing with. Can we recall what it is that we need to be using in the classroom? We want our students to be, you need our students to show these that they understand. We need to be able to help them and actually use the language that we want them to use. So what do we need? We need visual supports of instructions. We need to be able to show multisensory and multimodal approaches. What are we talking about these? We're talking about going through the visual, the oral, the kinesthetic, not just focusing on one, okay? Of course, we need to show, studies show that children with dyslexia profited more from hearing content rather than reading it. So, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to combine. When we mean by multisensory and multimodal, it's not just staying with one way of presenting information, presenting content. What we need to be able to do is we need to be able to show this aspect and be able to help them use this language. So studies show that the children, as I mentioned earlier, dyslexia profit more from hearing content rather than reading it. So what does this actually mean? It means that only for the dyslexic students? Not really. We can take advantage of using multimodal approaches in order to be able to help them. What we are talking about here also is the fact that, the three different multisensory and multimodal approaches, when we think about it, we're not going to use all three at the same time. We're not going to visually display something, say it, and then ask students to do something, because when you use all three, it doesn't really, it causes distraction. It doesn't really, it allows to focus on something specific. What we show here, for example, in some studies that I have done, is that it shows that I was able to apply the multimodal approach to students without dyslexia. We have this struggle that, our students are constantly focusing on these things. We need to be able to help them with the multisensory approach. Displaying high frequency words for students to see. This is something very common with dyslexic students. Now, let's think about the reality here. Our students are students that learn another language. All our students speak Spanish. Maybe you have even other languages in your classrooms. Now, we need to be able to help them display these high frequency words. It helps them to be able to use the language, and this is what we really want. We want our students to use the language. We need to be able to provide organizational tools. These are a lot of the things that we need to give it really a focus on. All right. So, Angie, would you like to show our viewers the practical ideas?
Sure, thank you, Maria Jose. Okay, well, as Maria Jose Majo has just told us, it is important that we vary the things, because in the classroom we have a variety of students and their needs are very different. First, I would like you to think about the type of tasks that you normally have in the classroom. In any given lesson, you pick the lesson, you pick a simple task that is frequent when you are teaching your lessons. Once you have it in mind, we are going to the first link that I am about to share with you, and it's a Padlet. A Padlet is, imagine it's the board in the classroom, and you click there, and you will be sent to this board. And in the board, you can write, as simple as that. You write your tasks, and I will show you the tasks that you are writing. Okay, so please think about a simple task, write it in Padlet, and we will see them. Okay. All right. I'm going to open Padlet directly. You have the link on the screen right now, but maybe you can also see it here, right? It's the first one. Now I'm going to click there, and you have the Padlet. Oh, you are very quick.
Wow.
Yeah, are you seeing the Padlet?
Perfectly.
Okay, thank you, Majo. Well, imagine these tasks in the classroom that have to be completed by students who are very different, whose needs are very different. You have in the classroom learners who prefer the visual approach, others that prefer the oral approach, and others who are kinesthetic and need to do things. So now I'm going to show you, for the visual students what could be an app in which they will feel more at ease to complete the task. But okay, I'm going to too many. All right, I like to pick one of the tasks that you are sharing. Okay. All right. I think this is a nice one. Cut, paste, and match, image, and word. This is more connected to perhaps vocabulary, right? Okay, so remember, cut, paste, and match, image, and word. That's our task for all the students in the classroom. Now I'm going to show you what you could use to engage visual learners, okay? The link is this one, Sketch.io, Sketchpad. Sorry. I'm going to click here. I don't know what's happening. Maybe again. All right. Not alive. Oof. Excuse me. All right, let me open it directly in my all right, here, Sketch. Okay, now I'm going to share again so you can see it. Okay, Sketchpad. This is a very visual. This is a very visual app. It's online. You don't need to do anything. You just click on the link, this link. But wait. Let me share again. I can find the session. Can someone help me? I don't know what the session is. All right. So I'm going to share again. Can you see it now? sketchpad. All right, so here in this sketchpad, you can simply choose one of these tools, text, cartoons, yes, and you start creating, okay?
Hi, teacher. Sorry for the interruption. We still cannot see the website you're showing, a Sketch.io Sketchpad. Could you share your screen with us?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can you see it now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, there you are. So you have here all these tools in which you can write, you can, for example, you can put something like that. Yes. This is an owl. All right. And remember what the task was, cut and match the images. So here you can cut and match the image to the word that it describes. All right. This is very visual, so your students can easily create something that they can see, the image and the word. All right? Yes? Okay. Now we have the next is Bokaru. All right? Bokaru is for oral approach, for the oral approach. Why? Because they don't need images. They can record their answers here. Yes, you click the button. You click the button and you start. You can share whatever you want to speak. I like owls because they are awake at night. Now you can listen to it. Want to speak. I like owls because they are awake at night. All right, and listen. Okay, so now you have the button of save and share. You click here. You can save it in your computer or in your smartphone, and then you can share it. So your students can share it with you, with other students, or even in a page that you have, for example, a WhatsApp group, a Telegram group, or any other group that in which they can upload what they are doing. Okay, so it's save and share, and everybody can listen to everybody. And this is ideal for those who prefer to speak because they are auditory and they don't like writing or they don't like doing things with their hands. Okay, and then we have another Padlet. Okay, please go to the other Padlet because for the kinesthetic, they normally need to use their hands. Okay, they like to cut, paste, perhaps draw, and maybe act something, maybe dancing, maybe sculpting something with their hands, maybe creating out of papers, creating something. And you ask them to do the task, the same task, and with their hands, with the materials they have at home, and take a picture and share it in Padlet. Okay, this is another Padlet, different from the first one. Okay, it's not this one, it's another one. And this other one, you can, oh, this is another one. All right. Let me just change it. Okay. All right. Sorry about this. You can join that Padlet. It's photo gallery. If you are there, you can start uploading your.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Start
You're
now.
faster than I am. This is wonderful. Do you see how much fun you can have? Actually, you can use Padlet for many things. Padlet is one of the perhaps more adaptable apps that you can use in the classroom, because you can have like lots of input from your students. They can share whatever. You can see it now. You can see it. See how many things you have shared in just a few minutes. All right. So, well, thank you very much for so many nice comments. And just think about how you would use this app in your classroom for your students, not necessarily in the classroom. Actually, you can ask them to go to the Padlet and tell me, match the images to the words that you have there, or any other thing. Okay, I am sure, and your contribution is proof of that you are full of ideas to share with your students and with us. And thank you very much for that. And I think it's, I give the microphone back to Majo.
Okay, so all right, so the idea is, let's think. So that was working memory. And in order to help our students with working memory, the combination of all those multimodal sensory will allow students to be able to work a little bit more, use their hands, use whatever it is that they need in order to be able to adapt the content. And then we're thinking about use of language. Angie, can you share the slides? So when we think about use of language, in our case, really, when we think about all subjects, regardless of the subject, there is specific language that our students need to be using. All right. So, for example, I teach English, of course, and I also teach in high school, in secondary school, I teach English literature. There's certain use of terminology that my students need to be able to use. They sit for international exams. They need to be able to prove that not only that they understood the books, that they understood everything, but that they could also use the language in order to be able to grasp the idea. So be able to use a higher level of language will help them, and subject-specific vocabulary is really important. So how do we bring that down even to lower grades? It's not the same to talk about, when you're talking about colors, green, blue, light green, dark green. Those are the type of things that we want our students to know, to be able to be more specific in their use of language, because this is the way that they need to express themselves. And again, we want our students to express themselves as much as possible in English. So Angie has thought of a fantastic app that she will be showing us in a second in order to help those high-frequency words be grouped and displayed. Again, this comes from helping students with dyslexia, but think about in general. Don't students in general struggle a bit with the specific use of language? So with one task, we can help all students, not just those that are that have specific special educational needs. Angie, please show us the app.
Thank you, Majo. Okay, this app is wonderful. Really, it's perhaps one of my favorite apps. And I want you to write in the chat. I cannot see the chat, but I'm sure I will be able to be given some words that you would like to explore. Well, that's an example that opens with the app. But tell me a word, or Majo, you can tell me a word.
Work.
Work. So you put work here, and look at this. Isn't it wonderful? But this is not all. We are talking about really helping our students to understand a word, the form of the word, the use of the word, and the grammar behind the word. Okay, so look at this. Nouns are in purple. Verbs are green. Adjectives are orange, and adverbs are red. Okay, and all this because sometimes a word has many ways of being transformed to mean different things. Okay, so let's use another word, perhaps one that has many things. And let's see, a word that I like, patient. Okay, here, patient with this meaning and patient with these meanings. But look at this. This yellow thing means that it's a member of. All right, so patient is a member of the relationship between doctor and patient. Okay, and if they don't get it, well, what's patient? And then they can see the meaning, which is this one. Is a kind of sick person or diseased person or sufferer. All right, and we also have that patient can be transformed into an adverb, and it's patiently. Patient can be a noun, but can also be an adjective. Okay, this is a noun. The person who requires medical care is a noun, but here it's an adjective. So imagine how much they can learn from just exploring one word. And let's do one more. Majo, you tell me one.
Fun. Wow. A lot.
And isn't it wonderful? Please use this app because I'm sure your learners will be very happy to use this, and they can explore the words that they need for their readings, for their grammar lessons, for the listening, to write their compositions, their sentences. This is a very engaging way of helping them learn about words and all that is connected in a word. Okay. All right. Thank you, Majo. Back to you.
Thank you, Angie. So we'll be looking now at another aspect, which is concentration. Now, let's think about concentration. Do you struggle with this? I mean, I struggle this constantly, regardless again of the age. I think the older, the less concentration. I know those of you teaching kindergarten students, you can tell me that it's not the case, but I swear to you, there are some days that I feel that my secondary level students who are about to leave high school and go into university have the same amount of concentration, depending on what time it is. Kids really struggle with this. So what can we do with concentration? Write the instructions on the board. I know you may feel that, it's regular and things, but it's really important for you to write those instructions on the board. Have routines to call attention. So, for example, it can depends on what it is. For example, I used to teach lower level kids, so I had like kindergarten, and I would have a whistle, like it sounded like a train. So I would have a train whistle, and they would know that that's how I would call their attention, because younger kids can tend to get loud, and I'm Latin. I'm a Latin American. I speak loud, the way we are. So I try to, bring them down a little bit. But if I shout on top of them, it's not really the right message that I want to send. So have some certain route, manner to call those attention. So sometimes you put your hand up until everybody puts their hand up, and that way you can draw them again. Don't fight for their concentration. Okay, don't struggle with that. It's slow them down, make sure that they stop, and then help them focus. Now, the third step, I'm mentioning it, but I feel like a big hypocrite. This is the stage that I struggle with the most. We need to monitor. We need to be able to monitor our students, but don't distract. If they're working alone, there are moments where they need that quiet time to work, or maybe you want them to work in pairs. You need to be able to give them that time, but don't distract, monitor. Maybe just point them the instructions. If you see they're a bit lost, remember the instructions are on the board. Pay attention, look, read, point, but try not to make it all about you. It's about them. And removing the clutter. When I read this, I honestly blew my mind, because I love clutter. Clutter, I don't know if you know the term, but clutter is when we have a lot of things, For example, I have a notice board here behind my computer, and it's full of things. It's full of, it's my calendar, so I know what I'm doing, like my monthly calendar to see what I'm doing. I have my son who has given me some pictures and things he draws and stuff, also there. I also have some memory, reminders there. I have my goals for 2021. I have all of these things on the notice board, but this is my notice board in my house. This is not the notice board at school. This would be extremely distracting for a student, especially if we're talking about students with special educational needs. So we need to be able to remove that clutter. For example, I love when kids make, create those posters, and they feel really proud when they're displaying in the front of the class. Make sure that those things are displayed at the back, because they can still be there, it can still be looked at, but it doesn't distract students. If there is a way, for example, the worst thing that can happen in our classrooms is that we have windows that face, like I had windows, for example, I remember working with a particular group. I had 25 students where 8 of those had special educational needs. And my classroom was next to the stairs. So imagine constantly students going up and down, up and down, up and down. It was really hard to maintain that attention. So I just moved. They've had their backs to the window. We still had the beautiful sunlight, but the backs were to the window. And that meant that they had the attention. I could have their attention. And when they worked together, they weren't distracted with what was going on behind. Again, if you're going to, for example, high frequency words, I love the fact that it's displayed in the classroom. Again, this is in the classroom, and I'm really being positive here that we're all going to return face-to-face. We will return face-to-face eventually. So this is something that you might want to bear in mind. For example, I strongly believe in using pictures and notice boards for memory's sake. So have, for example, you're working with clothes. I saw some of you working with clothes. Well, have the clothes there. Have, the items and what they mean, the picture and the description. But also make sure that once we finish with the unit of clothes, remove that. Put it in the back of the classroom or take it down completely. Do not leave things, because the more things, it's the more distracting, and then kids don't really know where they have to go. So having this type of less is more. This does not mean they don't have bright classrooms, don't have, beautiful things, but in the front of the classroom, be careful. All right. Angie, can we look at the next slide? We also need to think about the organization of work. All right, so this is something that a lot of students with special educational needs struggle with. Have you ever looked at a workbook, at their copybooks, and notice in their notebooks you see, and it's a mess? It's because they really struggle with organization of work. So they're faced with a lack of knowing where to start, and this is very common. They can't display it in a neat, logical manner. This is something fantastic about primary school teachers, that you have this, the lower the grade, the more structured you show your students. So for example, the title, underline it. Now use this, and that is fantastic. Now we need to be able to help them with that in the future. So mind maps, for example, is a fantastic way, which Angie was going to show us in a second. Also giving them handouts with key information. Now, again, we are all working online. So if you are going back online, this is going to be easier because you can create Google Slides, you can use a Jamboard. There are many different apps that you can use to create those handouts, and with key information, keywords, be specific. Maybe you want to have fill in the blanks. And this is something that I used a lot. As I told you, I teach English literature, and there's a lot of terminology that I need to go through. So what I do a lot is I give them handouts and specific items of vocabulary and terminology that I want them to make sure they are clear. I leave it blank, and then they have to fill in the blanks as we speak, or matching activities, the typical English exercises that we use. So Angie, could you please show us mind maps? I love mind maps. I hope that you're excited as I am with mind maps.
Yes, thank you, Majo. All right. No, this is another one. This one.
This is the good thing about mind maps, is that there are loads of different apps.
Yes, there are many. All right. This one, you have to sign up. Or sign in if you already have an account. But for the first one, every time you open it, you can create a free map. And that's wonderful, because you don't have to create any account, and your students don't have to create any account. They just have to get into the app one more time. Yes. So you just click on create a free map, and voila, there you have it. All right. You have here, different ways of creating a mind map. You can put here, or you can put two. Yes. Okay, concentration. That's something that Majo was talking about. And we can see instructions on the board. Yes, but you can also, you can add another one. If it's connected to instructions on the board, or directly to concentration, you can move it, or you can add it here. Yes. Routines. Okay. And you can move, you can change the colors, you can insert images, you can use symbols, whatever you want to insert, you can do it. All right. And I really like this one because it allows our learners to display their creativity. When you ask them to create a mind map, you are actually helping them to make brain connections. And these brain connections will help them be more concentrated, more attentive to the content, and they will be able to memorize words or content more easily. Another thing that is great here is that you can, at the end, when your mind map is complete and with the colors you want and the images you want, you can save it. You can you can publish it, or you can save it, and you can download it as, for example, as a PDF. Yes, you can download it as a PDF, and they can send it to you, or they can print it, and you can display the mind maps on the classroom, or they can include this PDF in their portfolio. For example, either it is a physical portfolio or if it is an electronic portfolio. But this is a wonderful app. I think it's very friendly, very easy to use, and it fosters your students' creativity, attention, cognitive development, concentration, talking about concentration, and many, many other cognitive skills. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm sure you try to create one yourself and see how much fun you will have with this. And for your students, it's very engaging. Okay, back to you.
So one of the things that I like specifically about these apps that Angie is showing us is that these apps, you may think, oh, these are difficult. I'm not sure if I can actually do these. And you can. A lot of these apps are very intuitive. And I'm sure, Angie, the teachers are thinking, some teachers might be saying, but I don't know how to use it and I'm going to have to teach. We don't teach apps. The kids today come with an internal chip. Do you remember when we first started studying to become teachers, and you would learn about that chip inside your brain that we have for language and that nobody really fully understands? So, that's why some kids, learn quicker than others. Well, this is the same thing. Kids come with this chip and they understand the world of apps. And if they don't, they figure it out. All of these apps are really much about clicking, double clicking, tapping if you have your phone on a phone or on the tablet. And it's all about making your way around the app. It's not something that you think, oh, this is too difficult for me. So take advantage of these, share them with your students, and make sure that they understand that you are not there to teach them the app, you teach English. And then these apps will help them along the way. And they do understand. Once they get used to it, they do understand. So let's think about also learning preferences. We all have learning preferences. And what we need to do is really, I'm sure you've seen this picture. I've seen it, one size fits all store. I've always struggled with these, those sweaters that are one size fits all, and I don't know who's fits all. I'm definitely not in that all category. So, we need to celebrate this diversity. And this means respecting the timing of the students. And I know this is going to sound contradictory, but this is one of the benefits of doing online teaching, because kids may have more time at home. ideally. I mean, we all know the situation. We've all been working online, and please don't think that your context was any different from mine. The only difference that we have is that my academic year starts in March. That's it. That's the only difference that your context and my context has had. We've struggled. Closer to the city has been easier. Rural areas has been a bit more difficult. But one of the things, the benefit of it is that if the kids are doing it right, they have more time to assimilate. So instead of having those 5 minutes in class before moving on to the next activity, and then the next, and the next, and the next, and then end of class, they have a little bit more time. So maybe they do the exercise and it takes a bit longer, or they do it faster, and that's okay. We need to be able to respect our students' voice. Kids have a voice. They need to be able to, feel comfortable. We need to be able to respect their anonymity. And this is one of the things that has helped with the use of technology. This is like a sword. It's a double-edged sword. There are good things about and bad things about being using their anonymity, but if we can get students to tell us what they need, it helps us a lot. So, it's important to maintain this attention at all times, okay? And we maintain the attention depending on how. If you're using these apps, for example, just to mention, all these apps that we are suggesting are all free. There are free versions. Of course, there are the paid versions, but I'm sure that there's always a workaround. So, for example, Padlet, you have, depending on when you do when you set up your account. I mean, I set mine years ago, so I have like 20 or 30 free Padlets, but newer accounts today, a maximum of 3 per email address. So maybe you can use 2 or 3 email addresses to have more Padlets, or don't have a Padlet per child, have a Padlet per class. A task. Then you can download that Padlet as a PDF. The same with mind maps. I think it's around 3 or 4, depending on which mind map app you use. Again, you download it, and then you delete it, and then you start a new one. So you still have that downloaded version with you, and then that way it's you can make the most of it. These apps are for free. We don't want our students to, we don't want to recommend things that you need to pay for, and of course we don't want our students to pay for things. It's when there's so much out there that's free, let's take advantage of that. So all of these things that we need to be able to take into consideration, it helps. The aim of this is to help us change the paradigm, and this has to do with us. Okay, so if we look at the next slide, when we change, the change of paradigm is this. In the past, we have be given equality. We give the same to all students, same as these kids. All these kids were given the same, but clearly they all don't have the same level. Physically, they don't have the same level. We've got the little one over there who still can't see, and the tall one already could see. So afterwards, we're thinking about the next stage, which is equity. So the student who needs more, we give them more. So that sometimes that student maybe needed more attention, we gave them more attention. Maybe they needed a little bit more work, we gave them more work. And the student, who flies, we tended to let him fly. Now, what we're talking about now is, why don't we just remove that barrier altogether? This is what universal design for learning is all about. It's about recognizing what are those barriers and removing them. So let's think about what is universal design for our context. So in the next slide, it's an educational framework that maximizes learning opportunities for all learners. Okay, so there are 3 basic principles, and this actually came from, we're not going to play the video just in case, Angie. This has a video, but we won't play it. What we have here is that there's an educational framework that comes from the actual architectural world. So, for example, when we, in architecturals, when they build a building, they build stairs and ramps. Now, the stairs can be used by those who have functioning working legs, no problem. Those in a wheelchair will need the ramp. But is it only the wheelchair? What about a person who doesn't need the ramp, but he has a bike, so he can, instead of lifting the bike and going up the stairs, he can just take it up the ramp. A mother with a stroller, again, we can take the ramp. So it's all about looking at different opportunities and how can we tweak our practices in order to help all our learners. And these are the three basic principles that we have: multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, and multiple means of engagement. So let's start with the first aspect, which is identifying the barriers. And in the next slide, let's think about the barriers in our language, in our subject. So, of course, we have the language is a barrier itself. Our students do not use English in their homes. I teach at a bilingual school, which means that they have 4 or 5 hours a day of English, and they don't use English at school. They don't use English at home. So what can we help them? There are many text-to-speech tools that are out there. In the past, we had to give you like 1 or 2. Today, if you have a Google account, you have text-to-speech tools automatically. Again, if you're using, there are different apps, okay, that we have this. So text-to-speech tools, speech-to-text tools, again, Microsoft Word, if you're speaking, you have the ability to, include that, and that you will be able to speak, and then it types it. Visual dictionaries, using that mind map app as a visual dictionary. Why not? We need to be able to raise awareness on language. Subject specific, identify difficulties of a task. What are the difficult aspects of each task? My task in itself, what are the typical tasks that we have as English teachers? Filling in the blanks, matching, maybe listening. Listening is always a problem. I don't know if it happens with you as well, but listening, it causes a lot of stress. It's different if they have the video, but, they need that aspect. So, we need to be able to identify those difficulties, and we need to be able to link, subject specific. We need to link to the aim of the lesson. There needs to be something specific to the aim of the lesson. So these are the barriers that we regularly have in our classroom. So how can we overcome them? One of the principles is the multiple means of representation. And the next slide, what we need to do is we need to be able to present information in multiple media. Okay, what do we mean by this? Angie, can you go to the next slide? It allows students to have, one back, or am I missing a, there, thank you. So present information in multiple media. Okay, so provide this varied support. Okay, so maybe using, I don't know about you, but videos with the pandemic, tutorials have gone all over the place. You can create your own tutorials, or you can, upload, you can download some of them. I created a lot of my tutorials a few years back, and I still use them today. So every year I add 3 or 4 tutorials, present simple, past simple, all of those. And the idea, of course, is to present this information in multimedia. So, they see that my PowerPoint presentation, they hear me speak. Hopefully it's not so annoying for them, for me to speak, but, we are able to use this, and it provides varied support. Use graphics. It activates background knowledge, highlight important features, and support vocabulary. So make it visual, highlight, take advantage of today that we have. At the moment, you're working online, so you're probably working a lot with PowerPoint. Maybe at school, you don't have that option. You don't have a projector in each classroom. That's fine. When you write, think about what works in the classroom, in online. One of the benefits is PowerPoint presentation, that you can use different colors, different sizes, for them to be able to focus on the to support vocabulary. So here are some practical ideas in order to make them, multiple means of presentation. So we need to think about perception, the size of the text. Okay, so the size of text, important, keep it simple. Important, important, make it big. Okay, contrast between backgrounds. Don't speak too fast. And this is probably one of the biggest problems. So apologies if I'm going too fast. This is I get passionate about my topics, certain subjects such as special educational needs, and I speak really fast. But I do try to slow down. Think about fonts when you're presenting. One of the benefits also, there are certain, I'm not sure which video conferencing tools you use, but Google Meet and Microsoft Teams today have captions there. And what's a great thing about these two platforms for video conferencing is that the captions for English are fairly good. So it helps students. So it's like, and we don't do anything. You just turn on the captions and then you speak and you will see your text being displayed. Don't try speaking Spanish because it's a lot of fun. I'm not sure now if it's much better. I mean, 2 months ago I tried and it didn't work very well, but I think there are some changes. But in English, we take advantage because English is it's so widespread that a lot of the apps are always in English. So the captions that these tools allow us to have it's easier for them. Also, if you're going to share videos, show the captions. What is the problem of them reading subtitles in English? There's no problem with that. Take advantage. I mean, YouTube videos, they have, nowadays the closed captions are automatic. I sometimes like to work with my students and say, find their mistakes in the closed captions, and they love it. They have loads of fun with it. Of course, explanation of visuals and realia. This something, actually, if you think, this is something that I never saw until I actually paid attention to one of the things of the, of the actual, one of our courses in British Council, our online courses. They always have it below a caption describing the picture. Sometimes images are not clear. Maybe they are for us, but it's not for all students. Maybe visually impaired students don't fully understand the picture, or the picture is too small, or it's not so clear. So we need to be able to make sure that we have this. Think about language and symbols. Clarify vocabulary, syntax and structure. Allow text-to-speech software. Again, there are many free options. Google text-to-speech apps free, and you will find loads of apps which are fantastic. Allow some translation, use multiple media. Take advantage. Today we have so much out there, and with the pandemic, people have been more open to different media sources. And I think that's, again, it's a bit of a silver lining of everything that we have we have gone through. Thinking about comprehension, activate previous knowledge, highlight patterns, big ideas and relationships, and guide that information. So all of these are some ideas that we can have for the multiple means of representation. Now, when we think about the multiple means of action and expression, okay, so we need to be able to provide plenty of options for students to show what they know, provide models, feedback according to their proficiency, provide models according to their level. There's nothing worse than finding models that are way above their level, and the kids go, but I will never be able to do that. It's impossible. Oh, but so we need to be able to be more practical in this sense. So what do we mean? Let's have a look at some of the practical ideas. Provide alternatives to interact with physical equipment. Okay? Provide, physical actions. Allow this assistive technology. Assistive technology, for example, is if you have students who struggle with spelling, allow them to use the computer. Sometimes we see teachers that they want everything handwritten. What is the purpose of, allowing this? allow, prohibiting technology. Take advantage. Of course, we know that at the end of the year, halfway through, they are going to have to sit for certain exams, and that's fine. Okay, but we need to be able to make sure that our students are using what they can at hand, and that way they can highlight, oh, I don't know how to spell this word. So instead of using technology as like a prohibitor, use it as an ally. So get students to, okay, you can type this in the computer and check the 5 spelling mistakes. What 5 words did you learn how to spell? And that's great. Why not? You know? And it also, this will at itself, in itself, it would allow students to become independent. And this is what our dream is. I mean, I teach secondary school, and without primary school teachers, I don't know where I would be. We need kids to be independent. So not always depending on the teachers. And this is a struggle that I see as a secondary school teacher, that especially at the beginning, those first grades of high school, they struggle to be independent. It's because they're used to depending on people. Now, if we allow them to depend a bit on their technology, this means that even though they seem that they're depending on technology, they are doing the action. They are the ones putting in the words. They are the ones learning and exploring. It's all about having fun and enjoying it. When we think about expression and communication, allow them to use multiple media. Some kids don't like to speak in front of the classroom. Allow them to record themselves. Today, Angie shared Vocaroo. Vocaroo, I honestly don't think there's anything easier than Vocaroo. It's a link. They click on the big red button. They speak. All they need is a microphone. They speak, and then it says save and share. They send it automatically. They put your email address or whatever it is that you use to connect with your students, and then you receive it by email. You click there. Why not? Instead of, allow them to do that. Maybe it's nervous it's enough, it really does cause some nerve issues to be in front of the classroom. So remove that barrier. So we move that psychological barrier, and the kids still need to do the task. What you can do is afterwards to say, okay, now I would like to share what you have said with the rest of the class. And then you can play it in front of everybody. The student is not there doing it live. You can also have multiple tools for construction. The spell checkers, of course, math teachers, calculators, text to speech. And what I like about multiple tools for construction is what I tend to use a lot in the classroom is, as I told you earlier, I teach secondary school, and my students sit for an international exam. So now, for example, we are coming to the end of the academic year here. We're starting to focus on a few things of, preparing for exam preparation specifically. So what we are doing is, we're thinking, okay, so these kids need, of course, in October, November, they sit for the exams. So we need to prepare for that practice. But my classes leading up to the exam is not, here's the paper, do the work, you have an hour. No, it's construction, spell checkers. I don't let them do on the computer, especially because now with the pandemic, they've lost the ability to write by hand. And I mean, all their exams are written by hand. So I need to get them to practice the physical aspect of writing. So, but they can have their computer and they can check the spelling of words, they can have a look at certain things. I also display on the board like the instructions of how to write an essay. Okay, so what do you put in the introduction? Well, information of this, background information, your aim of the essay, the topic sentences in the body, and the conclusion, all of that. That is displayed on the board. So the barriers that causes issues with communication, I try to remove. Again, I do this for all students. I don't do it for some, because I think that it's useful for some, and the students that don't need it won't use those hints. And that is UDL. That is Universal Design for Learning. Is the whole idea of changing our paradigm and looking at what the barriers are, trying to remove them without, and when we mean by remove the barriers is not reduce the level. We want to remove the barriers in order to get teachers to work, to be able to participate. For students to work and to participate and take charge of their own learning. Let's think about providing differentiated models and feedback. What feedback does your student need? For example, I have a student that every time I tend to do something which is probably horrible for them, which is I mark everything that they do wrong, but everything that they do right as well. You know, you saw it earlier with your the Cambridge session. You know, it's important to give feedback, but specific feedback. So you say, okay, the use of this collocation is fantastic. Where did you learn this expression? You know, so the kids are used to being, you know, receiving that positive feedback of great work. This is fantastic. Have a look at this. Okay, you misspelled here. A typical issue that our students have, our Spanish-speaking students have, is that capitals are different. So months of the year, days of the week, never with capitals, you know. Nationalities, never with capitals. You know, so I say, like, for example, now I'm just going, really? Is there anything missing here? You know, and I get them to think, oh, okay, no. When Majo says this, she's asking about, you know, capital letters and things like that. So provide those differentiate models and feedback. Think about your executive functions. Guide the goal setting and provide checklists. I'm a huge fan of checklists. I love it. I love my to-do list. And once I start to, you know, scribble, I mean, I love technology. I do everything on the computer, but my to-do lists are always on paper because, you know, there's nothing nicer than grabbing that marker and scribbling out what you have completed. So help your students to create this checklist. Maybe at the beginning, the lower levels, you could have you need to provide a checklist. So if you ask them to describe their bedroom, which is a typical exercise that we get to have, especially now during the pandemic, how many of you did, you know, shared that, you know, describe your bedroom, and then the kids would write or speak, whatever, or maybe even they show you a video. I remember I had a student that, you know, videoed her bedroom. And luckily she had cleaned all her bedrooms, so she was really happy, very proud. She was, you know, the table is next to my bedside table, you know, sorry, the bed is next to my bedside table, you know, describing the different things in her bedroom. Now, what I did was I provided a checklist. So describe 3 things in your bedroom. Use 4 prepositions. Use 3 colors. You know, I mean, it can be that simple. The checklist enables students to take charge. They don't check with you constantly. You know, they can say, okay, look at the checklist. Did you complete all that? Then great. Did you do anything extra? Fantastic. But you need to complete this. So this is the least amount. And that, again, that checklist will help kids, students because there's nothing worse than forgetting instructions. Support the planning and strategy development. Support your students. Facilitate managing that information resources and enhance that capacity for monitoring progress. What is the progress that you want your students to have? You know, and here's what we talk about, multiple means of expressions. And let's think about the multiple means of engagement. In the next slide, you will see that the purpose of multiple means of engagement is to give students choices to interest their autonomy. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. No, sorry, there's a bit of a delay on my end, I'm guessing. So how can we give students this choice? We need to give, you know, they need to be able to feel that they're learning, that they're taking charge of their learning. So here are some ideas. Recruit engagement by optimizing individual choice and autonomy. How can we do that? By allowing them, you know, you can set the minimum standards. So the minimum standard with a task of describing your bedroom was they had to describe the bedroom, name 3 items of vocabulary, so 3 items of furniture. They had to use 3 prepositions and 3 colors. That was the minimum. And of course, this was language that I had already taught. they had practice, and this was just a freer activity for them to be able to use that content. Now, how they expressed themselves, that was up to them. They wanted to draw the picture and then describe. Perfect. Did they want to write a story afterwards? Fantastic. Did they want to do a video? They were allowed. Did they want to just speak? Fantastic. Did they want to read? Awesome. Okay, so I optimized individual choice and autonomy. And then I asked them, can you present it in a different way? So your choice was a picture. Great. But I want you, can you add now the text? You did a video. Can you add the audio? You did, because the whole purpose is we want them to use language. So you state the baseline, and then how they complete that, it's up to them. And this is what it recruits their engagement, because it starts to trigger their creativity. And this is when real learning occurs. Think about when you were a student. When you were a student, what tasks did you enjoy? You enjoyed the ones, and what tasks do you remember? I struggled a lot with certain subjects when I was at school. Others were easier. Some were very difficult for me. Now, even those difficult subjects, I still enjoyed the process because my teachers tried to really optimize my individual choice. Make learning outcomes authentic. Authentic, age and ability appropriate. Don't ask kindergarten students to create a video and edit it. Maybe they can, but what is the point of doing something that, which I'm sure it's happening in your context, that your students, sometimes parents, start to do more of the work. And I always want to think that it's not because they want to cheat, it's because they're so engaged in learning the language that, they want to learn with their kids. And that's fantastic. But we need to teach, of course, the students. So make tasks that are authentic, like outcomes that are authentic, that there's a real purpose behind it. Why do you want to know about my bedroom? Well, because we are in the pandemic and a lot of us are in our houses. So just tell me about your house. Tell me about your surroundings. And age and ability appropriate. You're not going to ask 15-year-olds to describe their bedrooms if they already manage a certain level of language. Expect more of them. Maybe you could tell them to design your ideal bedroom. There could be loads of different questions and different things. So, try to sustain. And of course, you need to minimize the threats of distraction. And this is probably the toughest thing to do, especially online. Because in online, let's think about our online classrooms. We don't control where our kids are. We can give suggestions. I try to tell them, find a quiet place at home and put, behind you, you need to have the window. A window or the doorway or whatever. In front of you, just try to have a wall or try to have something that will not distract you while you're doing the online classes, for example. Because not only, it's very distracting for us as teachers, and it's really, really tough. So what we need to do is we need to be able to focus on these things, okay, to minimize these threats and distractions. In the in the classroom, we can reduce it by reducing the clutter. We can minimize, getting our kids to sit behind, facing, having the windows and doorways behind them, if possible. I mean, I don't have that in all cases. In some of my classes, I have the door next to the board. So when I want my students to pay attention to me, I walk to the back of the classroom. So think about, what are those threats? What are those barriers? What is it that's going to stop me from going through? And of course, we need to sustain the effort and persistence. So, vary the demands and resources. So foster this collaboration that we can have. We need to be able to increase the feedback. So how can we, vary the demands and resources? You might have a textbook. Fantastic. Maybe another student says, I don't understand this book. Great, no problems. Let's look for a video for you, or let's put it in, let's draw it. I mean, there are some expressions, I'm horrible at drawing, like literally horrible at drawing. But my students love my drawings because they're so bad, they remember the things. So when all else fails, what's my resource? I draw. I draw on the board, and because it just makes no sense, and they work so hard to try to make sense of what I'm putting on the board, they remember. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it works. Foster collaboration. And by fostering collaboration, I don't always mean get the good students to help the weaker students, because that's a common thing. I sometimes, try to work with the students I try to work with the students in the sense of, okay, I pair sometimes weaker students together. And you'd be surprised at what they can achieve, because they don't have the support of those stronger students, because you can do it as subtly as you can. But students know when they are weak and when they are strong. So sometimes I've put, the weaker students together, and I'm pleasantly surprised by what they are able to achieve, because they don't rely on other people. They rely on themselves, and they build that confidence and that trust, which is fantastic. And of course, we need to increase feedback constantly. We want our students to have this feedback, to be able to, work out things. This is what we want. We want our kids, to be able to focus on this. Also let's think about the self-regulation. Promote expectations, facilitate coping skills, develop checklists and checkpoints. Promote expectations is, don't expect less. Expect what you are aiming at. Sometimes we say, okay, well, maybe I was too ambitious. Were you too ambitious? Or did maybe the students needed a little bit more feedback? Because we can have high expectations, but those high expectations may require us to give more feedback, to give a little bit more guidance, and that's fine. We need to be able, especially today, we need to be able to facilitate coping skills. I'm sure it's happening in Mexico as it is in here in Uruguay. Kids get frustrated really easily. And of course, we have this whole thing of, everything is now. And I can only imagine what you went through during the online teaching last year, because those coping skills, they didn't have you. And you are a strong influence in their lives. You are the one that guides your students and helps them to, when they see you, they relax. Have you ever known if you've had the opportunity to sub for a teacher? I've had to sub for teachers, and the students appear very nervous. I mean, I'm an English teacher. We all English teachers, There's a teacher away, you need to go into their class, no problems. And I mean, you're not going to deliver the fantastic class, but you're going to be able to get through the aims comfortably. But when I went there, I felt the students really nervous. I even had one student say to me, I said, look, trust me, it works like this, but I don't want to go into too much detail because it's going to get very mixed up. And I just said, trust me. And he said, how can I trust you? You're not my teacher. So, wow. That comment kind of like, it's true. So we need to be able to help them with those coping skills. So get them to believe a little bit more in themselves, Okay, so how can we do that? Through checklists, through checkpoints. So give them a checklist, and then now and again, check where they are. Okay, so by the end of this week, you should all have chosen the items of vocabulary for describing your bedroom. By the end of next week, you should have chosen and revised sentences to describe using prepositions. Okay, and the following week, you should have already, okay, and then maybe the following week, you want to use connectors. Why not? Raise those expectations, and then that way those kids can create this high level of, of checklists, of checkpoints. It's fantastic, and kids really benefit from this. So what would I mean through universal design learning is all about really focusing on what is preventing my students from moving forward. What is it that I can do in the classroom to help my students? You know, is it through engagement? Do I need to think about engagement? Is it through action and expression? Do I need to be able to vary that action and expression? You know, is it through representation? How am I presenting this information? So what I would like you to do is think about all of those struggles and the challenges that we mentioned earlier in the classroom. We talked about the working memory. You know, sometimes working memory doesn't help. So is it because maybe we need to vary a little bit more how we receive information, how our students are receiving that information? You know, is the use of language, you know, concentration. Do we need to be able to help them concentrate? You know, organization of work, and learning preferences. Is this what's going on? What is it that's preventing my students from learning? So from there, we need to reduce our anxiety levels. So we don't need to be, you know, educational psychologists. We do not need to be the experts. We need to be able to say, okay, my kids, maybe tomorrow, I don't know the context, each of your context. At school, we have an educational psychologist who gives us tips on how to work with students with dyslexia, how to work with students with ADHD, you know, specific things about each of our students in order for us to help them better. But if we don't have that support, we don't need to be experts. We shouldn't diagnose special educational needs. Okay, so we think back and think, what is it that I need to do? I need to be able to identify the barriers in the task that I'm going to teach now. What is the barrier? What is it that's going to prevent a student with dyslexia or maybe a student with ADHD to prevent them from learning? In ADHD, the easy thing is concentration. Is there anything that you can remove? You know, sometimes our workbooks are full of color. Maybe just the text is what they need. Is there a way for you to photocopy and give them just the text? Is everything else causing too much noise, too much clutter? So it's all about looking at the barriers and thinking, where can I go from here? All right, so we have for you a Menti. So Angie, would you like to have a look at this Menti? So go to menti.com. I'm sure that you know this
Yes.
app.
Yes, you can, or if you have the app in your phone, you can just open the app and write the code. Okay, so but let me close all this because it's like too much for the computer. All right, so once you are there, you will see the question. I'm going to open it in a moment. You will see the question and answer the question. The question that is there is to be answered with one word or perhaps a very short phrase, 2 words, 3 words maximum. Okay, and I don't know if there's something with my internet. Okay. Let me. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Wait a minute.
In the meantime, you can all start voting.
Yes, of course I can.
So what triggers children's learning? That is the question.
Yes. What triggers children's learning? All right. Okay.
And well, Angie, if you want, we can, as you fix that, we can have a look at some of the questions that are coming through.
So.
It's working now. Yes, it's working.
There we are. There we are.
No worries.
Okay. Right. So you must be voting by now. Yes, and now you will be able to see your answers. Wow, you are fast, really fast. See how it's changing. You are answering what triggers children's learning, and you are saying motivation, curiosity. Motivation is the number one answer because that's why it is the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but we have games, creativity, playing, interest, fun activities, intrinsic motivation. It's difficult to read because you are changing it by the second. Creativity, confidence, curiosity, play, fun, emotion, context.
Now, think about motivation and how when there's a barrier there that kids can't get through, there's no motivation that will help them learn. So when we remove those barriers, motivation rises. And there you see the importance of children's learning. They need curiosity. They need emotion, definitely. I like the confidence, interest.
The thing here, Majo, is that once we understand what triggers children's learning, then we can remove the barriers that you were talking about. Once we have understood how my children learn and what triggers their motivation, their curiosity, their interest, their emotion, their interaction. Yes. So this is wonderful. Really, it's great to see how the same question can give so many answers. And this is actually collaborative learning. Yes, because I see words that perhaps never came to my mind, and now I have them here. Yes. Wonderful, really wonderful. Yes. All right. So, well, I'll go back to the presentation. Yes. Questions.
We have here some questions from the audience. Okay, one of the questions is, how can the use of apps in weak visual students, how can we use these apps? Well, first of all, for example, the applications that we have mentioned about when we talk about weak visual students is that they can still see. The problem that they have is that they don't have very good visuals. So in that case, what we can do is you can always expand and make things bigger. We can change the background. So, there's a setting where you can put for example, like Chrome, you can put it black and things. So, the idea here is that we help these students, okay, with these aspects. So that way, if they're weak students, making it bigger and maybe changing the color is enough for them. All right. There's another question here. ¿Cómo puedo usar estas aplicaciones en niños que tienen VAP? That's the whole purpose of these apps, is that students who have certain learning difficulties, again, depending, of course, on the learning difficulties that they have, is how can we help them is they need to be able to focus more on their organization. Give them mind maps. The mind maps will allow them to have everything organized. And a lot of the times is that sometimes they have, very messy handwriting. So what we need to do is we need to focus on certain things that help our students in this way. So, how can, this is what they need. They need help to get organized. Well, let's use these, okay, in order to help them organize. So again, text-to-speech tools as well. This is a tool that helps students who have difficulties in reading to be able to listen and read at the same time. And this is fantastic, because not only does it help weaker students, but it also helps students to retain better the information. As a literature teacher, I asked my students, look up the words in the look up the text that we're studying in YouTube. Is there an audiobook there? And then they read it and they listen to it. And somehow things, 2 channels are better than 1. 3 channels is too much, but the 2 different channels, they retain better the information. Okay. Let's have a look. I hope that I'm answering those questions. I'm just having, how can busy teachers apply this in their day-to-day teaching? We can apply this, constantly. It's all about identifying the barriers, and from there, what we do is we focus on what we can do. Okay, so what is the barrier that is preventing my students from working? Is it my language? Well, maybe I need to be able to support my instructions in a different way. Maybe images. They need the instructions in images. Is it because the task is too difficult? Is there a way for the text to divide it? Maybe I say, okay, question 1 is from paragraph 1, question 2 from paragraph 3, those type of things. I have a student with Down syndrome. I think this is the last question that we've got. I have a student with Down syndrome. He doesn't speak Spanish. Even he doesn't follow instructions in Spanish. How can I include him in a video class in a group of 12? Now, that's a fantastic question. So in this case, he doesn't speak Spanish, even he doesn't follow instructions in Spanish. Well, if he doesn't follow instructions, there is a struggle there. But is there a way that you can include him in the sense of, like say hello, saying goodbye, that type of thing? Like, think about the very basic language. I'm sure that there are routines. If you start with the routines now, hello, goodbye, stand up, sit down, look at me. I'm using because I always use gestures with my students. That might help your students in that men. Okay. Angie, can we share the presentation one last time?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. And last question is, what kind of apps can we use for autistic children? I know we can use videos, but what else? The thing is with autistic, as you know, that autism is a huge spectrum. So it depends a lot on the level, on this way they are placed in the spectrum. Okay, so maybe what we would have to do here is we need to focus on, as you mentioned, videos, maybe video like learning games. British Council Online for Children has loads of games. A lot of autistic kids are very good with technology and they really enjoy the repetitiveness of certain games. So maybe you want to take advantage of that. We are British Council. I know British Council has fantastic online games for kids. I've used them a lot with my students and they've loved it. So those are type of whatever is repetitive. Creating bingos. I love bingo. Just bingos. Try to think of games that are about sorting, about matching. Those are the type of things that, again, it depends a lot on where they are on the autism. Okay, and there we have the idea. So can we have a look at the next, the last slide?
This is an invitation. Thank you, Majo. It's an invitation from the British Council. We will be holding MOOCs on September 23rd, October 21st, November 18th, and the topics are there. You can see them. To get more information and even information to be registered, you can go to the link there, or you can use the QR code, and someone will be in contact with you through through the form, the SurveyMonkey, and you will receive all the information that you need to participate. It is very important that you know that these 3 MOOCs are free of charge. So take advantage of this, the generosity of British Council, and participate in these MOOCs. I think the 3 of them have very important information and content to further your professional development. Okay. I think.
So thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you very much for.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Majo and Angie, for such an enriching webinar and all the practical ideas that you shared with us today. I am pretty sure we have now many more ideas for this upcoming school year to create a more inclusive classroom. We have 3 minutes, and we have a couple of more questions from the audience. May I?
Perfect. Sounds good.
What about hyperactive kids? How can we handle activities with them?
Less is more. Make it less colorful in the sense of, again, removing the clutter in instructions. So hyperactivity kids, with certain activities, the importance is to have a strict routine. I mean, I've always loved the element of surprise, but when I had 8 students out of 25 that were hyperactive, it was exhausting for me. So it was too much for them. So what I got to do is have routines. So I would come in, we would play some music, and they knew that during those 3 minutes of music, they had those 3 minutes to prepare their things, get their books, get everything ready for their English class. Once and that something simple as that lowers their anxiety levels. And I don't mean like a very slow song. It can be like a upbeat song, but the whole idea is for them to understand that those 3 minutes are for them to focus and relax and get everything ready. That's one thing. Another thing is instructions on the board. Hyperactivity kids do not have the attention span that students without, of course, these issues have. So it doesn't mean that they're not intelligent enough. They're usually very bright. That's probably the most frustrating thing for teachers, that they're bright, but they're so hyperactive they think you miss so much because you just couldn't sit still. So I was one like that. So instructions on the board, and then always so they know what's expected and what's to come next. Reduce that anxiety level, and that will help.
Thank you very much, Majo. We have one more question. What kind of apps can we use for autistic children besides videos? Or what kind of activities could you recommend?
Activities for, can you repeat the question?
Yes, autistic children.
Autistic children. Okay, autistic children, definitely. Let's think about autism again. It's a spectrum, so I can't really tell you what's going to work 100% for that student, okay? But in general, what we do is they like sorting, they like repetitive tasks. So bingos, for example, 10 dominoes. The way that I've done it always is that on my computer, I look up pictures of the items of vocabulary, and next to it, I put the names. I cut it up, and then matching games. I play bingo, and then that same game, I create a domino. Those are the type of tasks that they love because it's repetitive, and it's, they feel safe because it's a repetitive task. Maybe the first time they struggle a bit, then the second, let them do it 3, 4, 5, 10 times. It doesn't matter. And then change not the task, but the language. They already know that they can do the task because they've already done the task. Sorting, matching, matching exercises are fantastic for these kids. So take advantage of, their strengths. Their strengths are, they see things in a different way. They see everything in an order manner. Take advantage of that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but we really want to thank you, and thank you all for being here and for your active participation. You teachers received very nice comments, Majo and Angie. Thank you very much. And let's once again give them a virtual round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Yolanda. It was an amazing topic. Everything was extraordinary. Once again, thank you. And we will continue. Muchas gracias a todas y a todos ustedes por esta gran participación, por tenerlas y tenerlos en sus lugares muy atentos y seguir hasta acá, hasta el final de estas jornadas. Vamos a tomar un pequeño receso y a las 7 nos vamos a volver a ver para dar cierre a esta jornada. Muchas gracias y nos vemos en un segundo. No se vayan.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos nuevamente. Bueno, pues vamos a iniciar con la clausura de la Jornada Nacional Virtual. En nombre de la subsecretaria de Educación Básica, doctora Martabelda Hernández Moreno, y la directora general de Desarrollo Curricular, maestra Norma Rodríguez Lozano, quiero agradecer primero a los asesores externos especializados y docentes que estuvieron participando activamente en estas 2 semanas en cada una de las actividades sincrónicas y asincrónicas de la Jornada Nacional Virtual de Formación y Actualización 2021. El Programa Nacional de Inglés, a través de la Dirección General de Desarrollo Curricular, considera que es importante generar espacios de estudios que permitan a los y los docentes, así como a los asesores externos, desarrollar estrategias educativas que les permitan continuar impartiendo sus clases de manera efectiva y satisfactoria. Es por eso que esta jornada tuvo como temas centrales la importancia de la resiliencia en el aprendizaje remoto, técnicas y estrategias, y herramientas e instrumentos para una evaluación formativa. Asimismo, nuestro sincero agradecimiento a los ponentes, instituciones y coordinaciones locales del PRONI que apoyaron la realización de estas jornadas. Coordinación Estatal de Nayarit, Coordinación Estatal de Tamaulipas, Coordinación Estatal de Chiapas, Cambridge Assessment English, Michigan Language Assessment, The Anglo-Mexican Foundation, Como Lin México, Universidad Deakin de Australia, The Queensland Institute y Edilar Partner de Google for Education en México. Las coordinaciones locales en las entidades que también prestaron personal para la mesa de ayuda, Sonora, Chiapas, Tamaulipas y Guerrero. Y por supuesto, al equipo del Programa Nacional de Inglés por todo su empeño y entusiasmo en este empeño, a Juan Carlos Roca Cruz, Enrique Ballinas y Luis Aguilar. Por último, como podrán ver, nos están acompañando en este cierre de la jornada las coordinadoras locales del PRONI, del estado de Chiapas, maestra Isabel Llaven, del estado de Nayarit, maestra Fabiola Vizcaíno Muro, de las instituciones de Cambridge Assessment English, Rosalía Valero, y del British Council, Denise Valenzuela, para dirigir unas palabras. Vamos a iniciar con la maestra Fabiola Vizcaíno Muro. Adelante, maestra.
Primeramente, quiero agradecer a la Dirección General de Desarrollo Curricular por tener en cuenta estas jornadas de formación continua, lo cual es un derecho tanto para los docentes como para los asesores externos. Quiero agradecer a toda la coordinación nacional por la organización, a los equipos técnicos, el apoyo que hemos estado recibiendo de parte de la compañera Isabel y todo su equipo que nos han atendido puntualmente, al Google Partner de Edilar, que también han estado al pendiente, pero sobre todo los protagonistas y los principales actores son los asesores externos especializados y los docentes de la asignatura de inglés, quienes estamos seguros que todo lo que han estado aprendiendo o que han estado reafirmando o descubriendo, lo van a aplicar en sus escuelas para mejorar el aprendizaje que vamos a llevar en esta nueva modalidad a la cual nos hemos visto forzados, pero nos vimos forzados, pero eso no quiere decir que no tengamos la mejor actitud y el mejor desempeño y cada día mejorándolo más. Muchísimas gracias a todos y que haya sido de mucho provecho todas y cada una de las exposiciones de estas jornadas, y esperamos que en el futuro sigan tomando en cuenta estos tiempos para la capacitación de los asesores y docentes. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, maestra, por sus palabras. Vamos a continuar con la maestra Isabel Llaven de la Coordinación Estatal de Chiapas.
Buenas tardes, maestras, maestros, un gusto, muchas gracias, Vanessa. Pues me uno al agradecimiento que ya daba mi compañera Fabiola, a la Secretaría de Educación Pública, a la Dirección General de Desarrollo Curricular, obviamente a la Coordinación Nacional del PRONI y a todos aquellos organismos, instituciones, universidades que hicieron posible esto. Claro, no pudiéramos estar nosotros haciendo toda esta colaboración si no tuviéramos este público de maestras y maestros, los asesores externos que han estado viéndonos todos los días. Creo que es un momento muy importante para la educación en el país y en el mundo, en donde necesitamos estos espacios en donde podamos escucharnos. Y digo escucharnos porque todos somos profesionales de la educación, preocupados de una pandemia que venimos desde el año pasado, en el cual no estábamos preparados, y los temas que hemos abordado aquí creo que nos han hecho ser catarsis, nos han hecho ver también un poco una luz en el camino del inicio del ciclo escolar. Así que vino en un momento ad hoc. Sé que hay áreas de mejora como equipo que estuvo aquí apoyando, creo que somos conscientes, pero la intención, el propósito se ha logrado, ¿no? Nos queda una tarea enorme, la tarea educativa está todos los días, la tenemos todos los días, y ser consciente de ello en estos espacios creo que nos ayudará mucho al beneficio de las alumnas y los alumnos del país, ¿no? Enseñar inglés a la distancia no es sencillo, menos bajo las condiciones en las que estamos. Y eso es importante, decirle a las maestras y los maestros que no están solos. Estamos aquí, todos estos equipos de colaboración, ya lo decía, me faltó también obviamente nuestro Google Partner de que estamos interesados porque podamos brindar apoyos para que la educación en México esté mejor. Así que gracias por permitirnos apoyarlos desde el estado de Chiapas.
Gracias, Isabel, a ti también, gracias. Continuamos con Rosalía Valero, por favor.
Muchas gracias. A nombre de toda la familia Cambridge de la Universidad de Cambridge presente en México, Cambridge Assessment English, Michigan Language Assessment, Cambridge University Press, Cambridge International, es un placer para nosotros el haber podido colaborar con ustedes en esta segunda jornada. Ha sido gracias por esta invitación de venir a poner la cereza al pastel de toda estos días de un canto y una celebración del desarrollo continuo profesional que es tan importante. Todos los que estamos aquí tenemos una meta que es apoyar la educación y a todos los que tienen que ver con la educación en México. Así es que muchas gracias, cuenten con nosotros, sigamos adelante. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Rosalía. Adelante, Denise, por favor.
Muchísimas gracias, Vanessa. Pues bueno, en nombre del British Council yo quiero darle las gracias pues al Programa Nacional de Inglés por extender esta invitación hacia nosotros. Gracias, Vanessa, gracias, Juan Carlos, coordinadoras estatales. Para nosotros, como bien lo mencionó Rosalía, nuestro objetivo es fomentar el desarrollo profesional de los docentes de inglés en México. La verdad es que estamos muy felices de haber participado en la jornada. Esperamos que todos los maestros hayan fortalecido su perfil, que hayan encontrado nuevos métodos, nuevas ideas que puedan aplicar en sus clases. Muchísimas gracias. Solamente para cerrar, les recuerdo que en el British Council tenemos recursos interactivos para sus clases completamente gratuitos, entonces los invitamos a que puedan checar en nuestras redes sociales. Muchas gracias por la invitación nuevamente.
Gracias a ti, Denise. Juan Carlos Roca, adelante, por favor.
Muchas gracias, Ben. Pues muchísimas gracias a todas y a todos, a las instituciones, a las coordinaciones, no solo las coordinaciones que tenemos aquí presentes, sino en verdad a las coordinaciones de todas las entidades que sin su apoyo no lo pudimos haber hecho, no hubiéramos podido haberlo hecho. El registro de todos los participantes fue algo impresionante porque fueron muchas y muchos de ustedes que estuvieron aquí, a las personas que también están tras bambalinas, que son muchísimas, y sobre todo a todas las asesoras, asesores, docentes que hay de inglés. Muchas gracias por su atención y les voy a dar un anuncio. No olviden que al término de la participación vamos a poner la liga porque sigo viendo sus comentarios. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Juan Carlos. Enrique, adelante, por favor.
Muchas gracias, Vane. Pues justo me uno también al agradecimiento a las instituciones, a las expertas, a los expertos, a las coordinaciones, a toda la gente, como bien dice Juan Carlos, que está detrás, que pues es un equipazo y todo el tiempo estamos pues, trabajando, la verdad. Y muchas gracias, ha valido mucho la pena, de verdad, ha sido 2 semanas muy satisfactorias y creo que todas y cada una de las ponencias han sido de verdad de un gran interés y han aportado muchísimo a la formación de los y las docentes y asesores y asesoras externos y externas, especializados y especializadas. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Enrique. Bueno, pues ahora sí, siendo las 7:10 de la noche, hora de Ciudad de México, damos por concluida esta jornada nacional y nuevamente extiendo mi agradecimiento a todos los participantes. Gracias.